Let me say this morning, in my own lecture, I want to call it a conversation with the civil society. And when you look at the title of my own paper, it's quite long. But I've also reduced it to a manageable capsule that will make us really grasp what this is all about. Let me start by just paying homage and recognizing Comrade Shehu Sani. Can I get a clap out there? I'm doing that because for 3 decades, over 3 decades, we have known each other. He as a comrade out there on the streets, me as a journalist, investigative reporter, working under 3 successive military dictatorships, with some of us going into exile. Unfortunately, comrade was not fast enough, so they clipped his wing and threw him in jail. He spent months upon months in jail, but never renounced his belief in the principles of civil society, the principles of democracy and constitutional rule. So I want to pay homage to him. And the fact that he's still standing today, the fact that he's still here amongst us, the fact that he's still vocal and is ever present in engaging the issues around development in this country is a challenge to every one of us here this morning. If through the decades he has stood strong, fervent, he has served as a distinguished senator, he served as a member of the Campaign for Democracy and several other groups, and is still serving up till now as he engages with the issues. So I hold him up in a provocative way and as a challenge to each one of us here, that if we think we have started the journey, yes, but it's a long journey ahead of sacrifice, of commitment, of courage, of boldness to speak the truth to power. Let me still hold him up further, because that's the only way we can relate. I don't want to just read a beautiful lecture and then walk away. Part of the staying power of Comrade Shehu Sani, because it's one of the leading lights of the civil society. Do your research, you'll find it.
And the greatest go, sir.
Is that he equipped himself, he acquainted himself with the facts. He was ever at home with what the details are. He had a deep knowledge of government policies, action and inaction. So he's often very well armed when he interrogates what the issues are. As a civil society crusader, that is your strength. It's not enough to say, we don't want this legislation. Do you understand what the legislation is about? Do you know the pros and the cons? Have you decided on the one that you think would be suitable to serve the mass of our people? That is really critical. He has also remained consistent. And as I reel out these virtues, you do apply them to yourselves. He has had the choice to move from PDP to Labour. Forget there was no Labour before. But he had the choice to move from NPN to... But for a while, before he joined partisan politics, while he remained in the civil society ecosystem. His feet was like a feet set in wet cement. Have you ever tried to put your feet in a wet cement and 10 minutes later try to remove it? What happens? It's a concrete. That means it was consistent. If your focus is civil society engagement, you don't cross the line into partisan politics. The moment you cross the line, you have lost the cause, you have lost the credibility, and you have lost your voice. Because people will challenge you. But then there's power in staying consistent. There's relevance in staying consistent, either as NGOs or CBOs, community-based organizations, or even pressure groups who pursue strictly an agenda. Because it is in staying consistent that you are focused, that you are sharpened to be able to engage and fight the fight you need to fight. The core of my remarks this morning will focus on what really is the central role that civil society play, both in democratic societies and also authoritarian societies. You might want to make a differentiation that it is when we have a democracy that the civil society group need not worry. Under the military, everybody is a member of the civil society. Am I right? Everybody. Because if you've ever experienced military rule, you will know that everybody clamors against military rule. But under civil democracy, there is that temptation, there is that danger to say, oh, let's just relax. This is a democratic government. Good governance is guaranteed. Respect for rule is guaranteed. Freedoms are guaranteed. Yes, but it is in that context that the civil society has a greater role to play under civil democracy. We've seen government policies and initiatives fail because of lack of awareness, because of lack of education, because of lack of understanding. The civil society in the past used to be seen as a weapon for confrontation against the state. But I think that changed when we moved to civil democracy. And that orientation must abide as we are under civil democracy. The civil society under democratic governance as bridge builders. And the question arises, and I will be provocative. Are we building the bridges, or are we attacking those bridges and destroying them? The civil society is to deepen the space between government and the citizens. Do we have a clear protocol and agenda on how to achieve this? Are we following through on that? What we had in the past, during the years of Comrade, and I was a journalist with the news magazine, I later became the editor of Tempo magazine. We had PM News and AM News in our group. Was that within the rank and file of the civil society, and I'm glad it was mentioned in Blessing Akinrusotu's speech, we had core professionals, labor professionals, lawyers, engineers, so that when issues, national issues arise, you can pull the expertise of your professionals to explain what is happening, explain the laws around it, and also help you to craft your press statement, or whatever memo you're sending to the powers that be. So we must pay attention to the credentials of our members and apply them to whatever campaign that we are about. Deepening the space between government and civil society. The civil society groups are watchdogs. And when you look at the role of journalists, the media is seen as the fourth estate of the realm. They also call the media the watchdog. And very often I hear people saying, okay, the media is the watchdog. Who is watching the watchdog? Who is watching the civil society? The Nigerian citizens are watching the civil society groups. The government in power is watching the civil society groups. And that's why there must be some level of professionalism and focus. And there's a lot to learn from the civil society groups we had under the military and the immediate post-military. It was organized, it was potent, it was cerebral, and they had great teamwork with little dissonance. So when the group roars from Abuja, the same roar is heard in Port Harcourt on a consistent basis. So it brings us to the question of crucial confrontation. We have a choice between crucial confrontation and crucial conversation. The theory is taught that when you avoid crucial conversation, you open the door for crucial confrontation. We have the civil society groups as the valve, the stopgap to make sure that we don't get to the point of crucial confrontation. However, I'm afraid that in the past years, rather than defend that space against crucial confrontation, the civil society groups seem to have slipped into crucial confrontation. I want to ask, does the need to return to that part of crucial conversation? Conversation with the government, conversation with the citizens that you represent, conversations amongst yourself, because sometimes you must choose your battle. Sometimes you must also throw the path, because you talk about good governance, is a collective effort on the part of all of us. As the barometer of the society, you are also an educator. You must educate the people about what is going on. You speak at good governance. What are the indices of good governance? How do you speak to them through policies, programs, and initiatives? You must stay away from herd mentality. Everybody is going in this direction. This is what Nigerians want. Without any verifiable data, you go in that direction because you just simply want to be heard. It's important that your role as a barometer, your role as educator, creating awareness, is taken very seriously. You cannot fight every fight. You cannot be behind every issue. You have to work definitively in terms of what your mandate and agenda is. And very easily people can say, oh, our agenda and mandate is clear. How clear is it? Like I said, you can't fight every battle. As a civil society council, what is your clear mandate? And I saw it stated here clearly. How do you now draw up a charter? Because that's the next stage after this meeting. How do you draw up a charter? Because you have to also be responsible. Based on your charter, we can support or either query what you're doing. Based on your charter, government and Nigerians can decide to take you serious or not being serious. But I think that the centrality of what you do is critical, especially under civil democracy, but more importantly, under a dispensation of reforms that this country is currently undergoing. It is very easy to see the cup half full, and then others see the cup half empty. But one stands sure, because one part is empty, one is half full. There is something in the cup. That is, there's some level of progress. And progress very often is not achievable from 0 to 100%. It's incremental. It's trackable. And that is where I'll stay for a little bit. This country is presently undergoing systemic reforms, economic reforms in about 10 sectors. It's been 2 years down the road. We've seen the impact in certain reforms. We still have 2 more years to track the impact of some of these reforms. And the starting point is, do we understand these reforms? Do we understand why they are necessary? Do we understand that with time, the fruits of these reforms will come to light? I'm sure you've heard it so many times that you can't make omelette without breaking eggs. So it is, you cannot want the renovation of your house to take place without breaking down the walls, pulling out some windows, with the intent of making sure you replace them with better walls and better windows. You also have the choice, when you have a wound, of using the Band-Aid. You know the bandage? They call it bandage, yes, Band-Aid. Or simply submitting yourself to a doctor for a surgery that will give you the permanence of a cure. When you take that treatment, it takes time for the wound to heal. When you are renovating a building, it takes time for the plastering, for the painting, electrical works to happen. So you must see Nigeria as still a work in progress. You must see this country as a country that has been punching below its belt. You must see this country as a country still needing leaders who will rise up to the occasion to take those tough decisions, move on, and another batch of leaders come. And I think the point we are now, we see this country at the cusp of change. We see issues that have belabored this country for so many decades now being addressed. It's not sufficient to complain about these things and then have a president or a leader who is unable to take decisive actions. The hallmark of a leader, like President Tinubu said in the interview he had in December last year, is to take the decisions necessary at the right time and stand behind those decisions. And I think my point simply is this. We've had clamors about subsidy removal, about floating of the naira, and a couple of other things. But where is the story about the fact that for 25 years, a few people were just siphoning away the subsidy monies? Well documented. Many were arrested. They were let go. Where's the understanding that for 8-10 years, there was an arbitrage. You could become a billionaire in 1 week because you buy at the lowest price and sell at the highest price. And somebody comes in to correct that. We're seeing improvement in the stability of the forex. We're seeing competition in the oil market. We're seeing a couple of other indicators. And I say this is also part of the role of the civil society. Why were these decisions taken? How were they taken? How long will it take for us to recover? It's also part of the work of the civil society. The work of the civil society groups is not simply confrontational. It is conversational. So I return to the very core, that you must engage in crucial conversation. Crucial conversation means that you will engage with the policymakers and implementers, so that with that knowledge, you can in turn educate the citizens. You will be deliberate in seeking out factual information in a timely fashion that you can use to also engage with the citizens. The crucial conversation of the civil society permits every work that you do. It's not enough to hold up democracy as an ideal. There are requirements and ingredients of democracy that must be mixed together for us to have the kind of robust democracy that we desire. I'm happy to say that the civil society ecosystem and groups are critical. Our journey from military dictatorship to civil democracy has been well told. And I dare say this morning that without the work of the civil society, those long years in active collaboration with the media, supported to a large extent by the civil democracy groups, that critical mass, without the work they did, without the focus they had, without the sacrifices made, mobilizing the people, educating them, staying on a clear agenda, we will not have had the return to democracy. Now that we have democracy, now that we have democracy, it is now important to make sure that the democracy we have is secured. It's our job to make sure that this democracy is people-centered. It is now our job to make sure that those who have given our votes to implement the democratic agenda, their feet is held to the fire. But you can only do that if you are armed with knowledge, with factual information. You have crossed from the civil society is not nuns. It's not student unionism. Civil society members are seen as patriots, intelligentsia, professionals, grassrooters, and disseminators of factual information. Beyond the boardrooms, beyond the theaters as we are, what are the channels of communication you have developed? The channels of outreach to the people, beyond just staying on social media alone. Because there's that tendency to just stay on social media and you think you're engaging the entire country. You know, that's delusion. That once you tweet something, the entire country is reading it. It's delusional. Because when it comes to public communication, when it comes to public engagement, there are various levels of engagement, various levels that are really impactful. Where do you put the role of radio, television, vernacular newspapers? Where do you put the role of the mosque, the church pulpits, the role of professional associations and groups. So it drills down, and we have to pay attention to all of that. So you are not a protester. I'm getting granular. You are not a confronter, but you are a barometer for our society, setting an agenda to make sure good governance survives. And where you find good governance failing, coming forward with suggestions and proposals to make sure that good governance is sustained. You are partners with government, not adversaries. And it is in being partners with the government that the windows and the doors you need to be able to get the information, to also make sure that you get legislations, policies that you think are important for the people. That's the best way to get it through. So let me just wrap up by saying, when Comrade Shehu Sani walked in, when I knew he was on the program, and I was praying that I will finish my delivery before he comes in. Unfortunately or fortunately, he came in before I was asked to speak. So I had a bit of jitter. You understand what I mean? I think he has more gallons than I do. And he can give a deeper tutelage. Because what really brings it home for the work you do is the anecdotes, the experience. If you've walked through the fire, if you swam through the ocean, you can tell the story and you can guide. You can call up real situations. Have we been here before as a nation? Yes. Civil democracy. The MPN days. Those glorious post-colonial days when we had the Saudana, the Awolowas, the Nnamdi Azikiwes, Tafawa Balewas. And we can interrogate that period. One of the most glorious periods of our country. We see legacies, edifices of that period of civil democracy. And then we had the military interregnum. Military leaders after military leaders. And that was when the civil society of our country was forged in the crucible of struggle. And that struggle still remains. But we need new tools for that struggle. And the new tools we need are the tools of knowledge, understanding the policies of government, interrogating them, creating awareness. Let people know clearly that this policy is for a purpose. There might be temporary pain, but there's a long-lasting benefit. Change is the only permanent thing. And I dare say, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, this country has found a leader who has decided to confront the critical challenges of our country, who has decided to press the button that other leaders failed to press. He's a leader who is not given to populism. Rather, is given to good governance. And he desires that this country will take the necessary bold steps in the right direction, notwithstanding. So things are changing. Things will get better. The pains experienced now, the sacrifices will be temporary, but it also takes the collectivity of the citizenry to drive through. And I'll give you an example quickly. Sometime last year, the president asked that Bua and Dangote should please bring down the price of cement, because the price of cement was going up. I'm sure some of us here were building houses and stuff then. On a daily basis, it was going up. So they decided to bring down the price of cement. So cement came down by about 40%. But after a few weeks, they realized that even though they sold at a subsidized price, the last man, the retailer, who was selling to ordinary Nigerians, was still maintaining the high price tag and thereby increasing his own profit margin. And after a while, BUA, based on market survey, decided to return the price back to what it was. Now, a good policy, a good intervention by the government, but because the citizens decided to game the system, that effort failed. And that's why I said, apart from this partnership with the government, with the civil society group, there's also the larger partnership between the citizens of this country and also the government. The support, the understanding that is needed. We all have a role to play, and I think the civil society space provides us with that opportunity to make sure that Nigerians are engaged fully. Nigerians are made to understand why we're going through what we're going through. Nigerians are also made to understand that there are benefits we're seeing. Things are getting better. What are these things that are getting better? And this drum has been beaten so many times. But I saw a video 2 days ago from Sokoto. How many of us have seen that video? Of young students just in their hostels rejoicing and calling the name of the president. It's not the name of the president that matters. It's the fact that this president signed on to a policy called NEL Fund. As I speak, 435,000 students have benefited. About 770,000 have applied. They're not just getting the scholarship, but they're getting pocket money. I'm sure most of us here don't even remember what bursary means. You never even collected bursary. We collected bursary in school. Our state governments were giving us money to go to school. We were eating meals at, almost for free. That era is back. And we see from Sokoto to Port Harcourt to Lagos, the story is consistent about NEL Fund. It took the vision, it took the commitment of just one president to make that happen. And we can talk about other policies that have been enacted. There is a gestation period for policies enacted to bear fruits. When you talk of reforms, it's not from 0 to 100. It's progressive. And we're seeing that progress being made. So let me submit that I'm really glad that they've been able to pull this together. I think it's important that the members of this council, the groups in this council, the names of all the groups that are there are made public. Let's make a public show of this council so that governments and other groups know that you exist. They can identify with you. And when you speak, they can recognize you. And that is why I am here. That's why Comrade Shehu Sani and others are here, to give you full support, because we know you play a critical role. In the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I want to assure you that you have a partner. If you are ever in the dark about certain policies, come to us first. Don't go to the street. If you are ever in doubt about any of the policies and action or inaction of government, come to us first before you hit the social media with a tweet or a write-up, because that is the best way we can inform. We don't want to misinform. That's the best way we can mobilize. That's the best way we can provide unique information to our citizens that empowers them to benefit from whatever policies and initiative the government has. I thank you very much for listening. I hope I've been provocative, and I know that Comrade Shehu Sani will dig deeper, we'll dive deeper, and of course, all the questions that you have for me, I hereby transfer those questions to the comrade. I want to recognize the most distinguished senator, because I have to recognize him. When I was minister, he was the chairman of the House Committee on Youth. And I'm glad to see him. He's moved up as a distinguished senator, but also he's the chairman of the Senate Committee on Media. I never knew he was such a powerful speaker. I watch his interviews on channels, and I wish I can speak like him. But I'm glad he's here. It's really nice that the Senate is represented, and I'm sure you're going to hear some very useful words from him. And we hope that beyond this event today, we're going to see a lot of activities. We're going to see the energization of the civil society space in a different direction, a different orientation. Don't be afraid to approach other groups that have been there for a long time. Get them to buy into your idea. We'll have you on this single umbrella. We can engage, and then you can deal with it later. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of it.